Welcome! I'm Michelle Anderson, the founder of Clarinet Mentors, and one of my goals is to give you tools and tricks and tips to help you play the clarinet more easily. In today's video, I'm going to give you some pointers to help your very highest notes work more easily. So this is called High Notes 101 Part 2, and this will deal with our very highest notes, what we call the altissimo register. So that's in our high register above high C, kind of high C sharp and up. Now, if you haven't seen High Notes 101 Part 1, which deals more with what we call the clarion register when we first start playing high register, I do recommend you watch that because everything in that video applies to this one, but this takes us to some more advanced techniques. Now, when we play the altissimo register, I want to show you some good habits, things that will help you play it more easily, but I also want to point out the bad habits that we commonly have that interfere with these notes and make them harder to play. That way you can notice if you have anything that you're doing that's hindering them, and you also might learn some things on this video that will improve them and just make them feel easier that you didn't know before you watched today. Now, one of the most common bad habits I do want to mention right off the bat because I've never seen someone who doesn't have it, so odds are you have this. That is, when we first start trying to play into that altissimo register, we realize, oh, it feels hard to play. And our brain immediately sets up some protective mechanisms so that that will sound okay and it won't be bad. And usually the mechanism is back off, be careful, or I'm gonna do it. This determination sets in. And the two bad habits are either that we let our air get really wimpy because we're afraid it's gonna squeak and not sound good, or not speak well. And if we have wimpy air, well, we tend to get a wimpy note. The note might not come out at all. So for example, let's say I'm trying to play high E, and I'm kind of scared it's gonna squeak. I might just back off so much, I just get that undertone. That's my air going, please don't squeak. So we need to keep our air going full steam ahead, and we'll talk about that more in this video as we progress. The second thing is that we tense up because we're nervous about it, and inadvertently we end up squeezing the reed, biting on the reed, either pinching it shut so nothing comes out, or that we squeak on it. And then because we're afraid it's going to squeak, we back off on our air, and that leads us to common problem number one. So a good way to counter those things is to really focus on the corners of our mouth wrapping inward firmly around the edges of the mouthpiece. It's like I want to squeeze the sides of the mouthpiece and have that really support the embouchure, and that keeps us from biting down on the reed. That's a really good habit. Our air should just keep moving steadily and firmly. Now, having said that, I'd like to introduce you to an exercise that really helps the high notes, the altissimo register, to come out better, and this does involve changing our embouchure a little bit. Generally, I'm a big believer in not changing our embouchure much at all throughout most of the range of the clarinet. It's usually when we do change our embouchure that we run into challenges. So I would say from our very lowest notes up to high C for sure, and sometimes even D and D sharp, we actually want our embouchure to stay very consistent. When we go into the higher altissimo notes, we actually do need to change our embouchure a bit to make those notes feel easier to play. I'm going to give you an exercise that really trains your mouth in how you need to change your embouchure for those notes to work well. So here's the basic thing that we want to train ourselves to do. When we're playing really high notes, and I would say for most people that starts at around a high F and up, we actually do need a little bit more pressure down onto the reed. So I don't want to contradict myself because earlier I did say if we're biting the reed and squeezing it shut, we're going to have trouble. Well, that's true. So the direction of pressure is going to be lower down on the reed where the reed's much thicker. So typically when we have challenges, it's because we're pushing on the reed near the soft tip here where it's very thin and it's easy to close it off. What I'm talking about is our jaw is going to be pushing pressure down into the thick heart of the reed. This is a very subtle movement, but some people achieve this by actually opening their jaw a bit wider as they play. So to exaggerate what that motion would look like, I'm playing and I move my jaw down the reed. Now I really exaggerated it to give you an idea of what direction we're talking about. Here's an exercise that I encourage you to try, and it will really help train your mouth and what it feels like. we're going to play your low C, the C we would play with our thumb and first 3 fingers on our left hand. We're going to play it normally. A note most of you are very familiar with. Then we're going to take this note and experiment with adding that jaw pressure down on the reed. And this is when you first start this exercise, it's going to feel very strange for your mouth and you might get some weird squeaks and squawks. It takes a couple weeks to master it, but I really encourage you to try it because it will really help you train your mouth to be set properly for those altissimo notes. After doing this, the altissimo usually feels really easy. So what I'm going to do is keep fingering the C, but try and hit some higher notes by pushing down on it. There's actually about 5 notes we can hit, including the C, that are just by changing our jaw pressure. So here's an example of what that might sound like. So I took us very, very high. I'm not changing my fingering. I am changing the motion of my jaw, pushing it down on the reed. Now, some of those overtones are easier to get than others. The one that's easiest to get is the one that you've probably gotten by accident a few times before, and it sounds like this. I'll start on the low C. And I get up to that high note there. That's kind of like an out of tune high E. But if I can get that note while fingering the low C, my mouth and jaw are just about in perfect position for that E. So here's how I use this exercise with my students. When they're working on a piece that has a lot of altissimo notes, I'll get them to try this exercise. One of the hardest ones to hit is the second one, which is kind of like playing the high G, except we're not actually pushing the register key. One way to help get your mouth used to that is to actually press the register key, and then while we're holding that note, release it with our thumb and see if we can continue to stay on that note. So that might look like this. So you can see when I took my thumb off the key, I stayed up on that note. That's a good way to help us get used to doing that. It's a little harder to just hit it from the low C. But eventually we can train our mouth to do that. If I had a student working on a piece where they had a high E or a high F, any note close to that, and they were just having trouble having it come out where it didn't sound full and easy and it didn't feel easy to that student, I would have them practice going from low C into that squeak that's in that region. If I can play that loud and clear when I actually go to the proper fingering, it feels so easy. And it's a really great feeling for you to suddenly play that note with the real fingering and have it just feel effortless. That's what we want for all of our notes. And if I had a note that was even higher, I would practice it again from down here. I might cycle through them. Once that note's working, I could go to the real fingering. And again, that's a high A. It feels effortless. It's a really nice exercise for us. So again, it is a little challenging to get used to it, but I really encourage you to try this. If you can do this exercise, when you actually go to your normal fingering, it really feels easy. So that's my pointer for you for today on improving the altissimo. It's one of the best exercises I know. Like I said, at first you might find you can only get one high squeak. Your experiment is going to be how much pressure you put onto the reed. Another tool to help you get used to it, at least as a practice tool, is deliberately put too much mouthpiece in your mouth. For sure you'll squeak and you'll get one of those higher notes. That also helps you get the feel for what it's like. So often, just by doing that, more mouthpiece in your mouth, you'll get one of those squeaks. Now, you might not sound great. It's not the most beautiful music in the world, but it really is training your mouth to do what we would like it to do. Try that out. You'll notice that there's a comments box underneath this video here on YouTube, and I'd love to hear from you. You might have questions about this or just comments about clarinet in general. Fill them out. I go through there about once a week and I add my responses to what you have to say. and I really would look forward to hearing from you on that or any of my clarinet videos. Speaking of which, I would love to invite you to join my Clarinet Mentors community if you're not already a member. It's totally free to join, and if you join, you'll get a newsletter from me about every 2 weeks via email, and it always has a video like today's video with one of my pointers for how to help you play clarinet more easily. I'll also talk about any interesting clarinet products I've come across, whether it's a great CD or reeds or ligatures or other clarinet gadgets that would help you out. So it's a really nice, informative newsletter. If it's not right for you, you can unsubscribe at any time, simply, instantly, easily. I invite you to join my community, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Clarinet Mentors video.